What's going on, people? We are Tottenham TV back here for another update, your second update of the day. How lucky are you guys out there? 2 updates in one day, and especially with Danny Kyriakou. Big up to Danny for joining me today. We've got a few things to talk about. Let's start off with Harry Kane. I've actually got quite a few updates on Harry Kane, so I'll get through them and then I'll get your take on them. First of all, Ali Gold says there is little confidence within Manchester United that they can convince Daniel Levy and Tottenham to part with Harry Kane, even with 12 months left in his contract. The current feeling at this early stage is that Kane is less likely to leave this summer and instead will give at least one season to the club before the power falls back into his hands with the contract situation. David Ornstein says, I think there's a really good chance that Harry Kane does stay at Tottenham this summer, but now there's reports coming out of Spain, and Marca are claiming that Tottenham talisman Harry Kane is one of the most appreciated players at Real Madrid, but the Spanish club don't want to enter into negotiations with Daniel Levy. El Leguero are saying that Real Madrid are aware Tottenham would rather sell Harry Kane to them as opposed to another Premier League team, but they know Daniel Levy drags on every negotiation till the last Euro. Cope, another publication out in Spain, saying that Real Madrid will prioritise signing Harry Kane if Karim Benzema leaves. Carlo Ancelotti has informed the board that he really wants the player. Inside the club, everyone at Real Madrid loves Harry Kane, but the board and the coaching staff believe he is a truly elite player. I mean, how do you see this one playing out, Danny?
I mean, I was told back in, what was it, November, October, that it would take over 100 million or more, right, for Harry Kane to leave in this summer, purely because the club.
Is that England or outside of England or both?
In England, in general, to leave. But I think if it was abroad, he'd probably still want more than 100 million. And the reason why my sources were telling me that it's because the club value him more to keep him for one more year than to sell him, which from a business point of view is insane, because you could probably maximize getting what you can get for him this season to help put into the squad. On the downside of that is I don't trust this board one bit on this recruitment that we have at this club to invest the money properly. They probably won't even invest all the money that we would have for Harry Kane.
We already did. Didn't we sign Richarlison for 60 million last summer? That's who the Harry Kane replacement probably is.
So yeah, that's exactly it, Ben. So we were not going to sign another striker. We'll probably get someone on loan again. We might get another Dan Juma loan or something like that. But look, with Harry Kane, I just don't see anyone paying. Look, Daniel Levy is not going to sell Harry Kane for. I heard on TalkSport. I was listening to his chat. I can't remember who it was, right? And there was one of the guys on the podcast was saying that that they could get rid of him for 50 million this year, and or otherwise he goes for nothing. I was thinking, in what mind do you think Harry Kane is worth 50 million to Daniel Levy and Tottenham Hotspur? He is the club's all-time record goal scorer. He is literally Mr. Tottenham. Without him this season, we'd be fighting in a relegation battle, right? And it's just insanity to think that they would think, or anyone would think, that Harry Kane is worth 50 million pounds, regardless of him being 30 years old and 1 year left on his contract. The problem that people sometimes struggle to understand is that in football, right, it's not about what the player's market value is or what these stat websites or whatever it is value a player at. It's whatever the club values the player at, however they feel what he is worth to them, right? Now, with Tottenham and Daniel Levy, you just have to look at the stats of what Harry Kane does year in, year out, what he's done for us in his 10 years or whatever it is at Spurs, right? And where the club has been taken to with Harry Kane and how he's helped with that going to the next level kind of thing, right?
And on top of that, the money that he generates the club with, commercially.
Yeah, exactly. He's England's top goal scorer, Tottenham's top goal scorer, first player to score 30 goals twice in 2 different seasons in the Premier League. He's closing on an Alan Shearer's record, right, as being the all-time Premier League top goal scorer, which is what he wants. And he just hit another 30 this season in a team that was absolutely shocking this season, right? And for him to get the numbers that he has got, right? And just to add before I finish this point on Harry Kane, when you look at Haaland and you look at Harry Kane, loads of people compare the two, right? And what's funny is that Haaland is playing in a team full of absolute world-class players. He's got 36 goals in the Premier League to Harry Kane's 30. and look at the players that they're playing with. Harry Kane is playing with absolute dross. He's doing so much of it by himself, right? And Haaland's playing with world-class players. I feel if you put Harry Kane in that team, I think he's going to score more than Haaland. I just think
I said that.
He's the complete footballer. He's got the brain of Haaland is an elite finisher, right? He's an unbelievable finisher, and I know he's done it at other clubs as well. I'm not taking that away from Haaland. I'm just saying that I feel Harry Kane is a far more overall complete footballer, and I think you put him with far better players, he's going to score more. Imagine you put him in that Man City team. I know they play a different style
40
of
goals.
football.
40 goals minimum, I'm telling you.
I think he can do that. I think he could do that. Harry Kane scored what? He scored like 53 goals, I think, for us one season, and he was like behind Messi and Ronaldo in the goal scoring charts in the whole of Europe. So I think he's got the ability to do that, and not just that, it's his overall game. And I think with Harry Kane, his worth to Tottenham is more than 100 million, regardless of him having 1 year left on his contract. And unless an offer of 120, 130 million comes in, I do not see Daniel Levy selling him. As much as even people would say you're mad not to take 90 million for him, right? It's not about what we want as fans. It's not about what we see as fans. It's what Daniel Levy sees as him being valuable to Tottenham. And Daniel Levy, he can't be that stupid to realise that if Harry Kane leaves Spurs, we are in an absolute mess. And to try and replace what he's given us, right, he's going to have to spend money, a lot more than 100 million.
Yeah, but Danny, isn't it just delaying it a year? I mean, we know he's probably going to leave either way for free, so you may as well get some money in for him then.
But I reckon what Daniel Levy's thinking, right, Ben, is that he gets the right manager and he gets someone in who is going to give a little bit of money to pump into the squad, get a couple of players in, get maybe one centre back when we really need three. He'll get maybe another Moura replacement, and then maybe I don't know, another couple of players, right? He'll probably look at it and think, look, well, if we can challenge for top four again and get into the top four, and Harry Kane gets into top four one more time, right? Then we've got the Champions League money, and then we can just Kane can go on his own accord, right? And that's how I see it. And I just think in terms of merchandising, in terms of TV rights, in terms of the actual money you get being in competition, there's more money to be made by being in the Champions League. And you've got to remember, Ben, that this is a key thing here, right? This season, if we finish fifth, we get Champions League football, right? For the season after, for 2024-25. Yeah. So Daniel Levy is 100% got that in the back of his mind. And he's thinking, well, now there's an extra spot available. So now it makes it easier for us to get into the Champions League. So if we do keep Kane and we manage to finish fifth, we've got Champions League football next year. So in that respect, I think that's probably what he's looking at. He's looking at what can it do for Tottenham if we manage to keep Kane and miraculously make top five, right? Because top five is kind of achievable when you look at where we finished the season. It's not that many points off where we actually finished. So you sprinkle a bit more quality players than what we have, right? It's not to say, and you get someone who plays the right way of football, we might overachieve and get fifth next season, which is obviously better than this season. But that's Champions League football, and then he'll go, look, Harry Kane got us to Champions League one more time. We've got the money for it. Now you can go to whoever you want to go to. And I've always been of the opinion that Harry Kane will leave on his own accord. I think he knows as well, he's not stupid, that Daniel Levy's not going to let him go unless it's for an astronomical bid. And unless that club comes in, like Man United, say, we'll give you 120 million for Kane, that might make Daniel Levy think, okay, maybe I will sell him, right? Unless you get that, he's not going anywhere this summer.
Yeah. I've been consistent of the thinking to say that Harry Kane will be here next season. I can't see a way where he does leave this summer, albeit a lot of people are being like, oh, he's definitely going. I just can't see him going, to be honest. Yeah. And David Ornstein as well came out and said that he seems a lot more calm about being at Tottenham next season, whereas a few years ago he was itching to go. He really wanted to get that move to Man City. But I don't see any options for him this summer, to be honest. If he wants to stay in the Premier League, I really do not see any options for him. And I think Daniel Levy is going to make it so hard for him to leave as well. So he knows he's got one more year in his contract. And then at the end of that year, he's got the pick of any team he wants in world football, literally.
Exactly. And I think, Ben, that's why you're seeing a lot more of these reporters come out and say things that I've kind of been told months ago, that unless I think Kane knows, right, that he knows that he's got 1 year left of his contract. He knows that if he stays one more year, he can try and help Tottenham try and help with this build, try and get them back up a bit higher up the table, right? Try and put them in a position where they can maybe try and challenge for the top 5 positions, right? Or get into the top 5, because that's what it's going to be now. And if he can do that, he gets another step closer to breaking that Alan Shearer record. And then at the end of it, he can go on his own terms, and he can go to, like you said, whoever he wants. And I think when it was the Man City saga, it was different then because he had 3 years left on his contract. And at the time, he probably felt, I'm never going to get out of this club. And
Exactly.
I can't stay here for another 3 years like this, right? Now, it's a different situation where he probably feels like, well, look, I'm going to just do what I'm going to do. I'm going to do the best I can. And it gives him another chance next season to show, look, I'm still Harry Kane, 30 years old. I'm still going to bang in 25, 30 goals in the Premier League. And if someone wants me, he can have whoever he wants. He can go whoever he wants to go to. And that's it. If he goes and scores another 30 next season, or does even better and gets more assists, it's just even more kind of marketing for himself to say, look, who wants me? Who wants me? And that's it. And he'll go to the best. I think he'll go to a club where he feels he's going to have a chance to win trophies. He won't go to a club for money. He'll go somewhere where he feels there's a very, very good chance to win trophies.
Yeah, absolutely spot on. Let's move on. Let's talk about Dejan Kulusevski. I mean, a few months ago, we heard quotes from him saying he considers himself a Tottenham player now, and it all seemed all rosy in the Tottenham camp with Dejan Kulusevski. Hasn't had the best season whatsoever. I mean, pretty poor season, to be honest. And at the end of the game against Leeds, some worrying quotes that were worrying a lot of the Spurs fan base, saying he doesn't know where he's going to be next season. But there are reports coming out today, Dan Kilpatrick saying that Tottenham are set to sign Kulusevski permanently for 25 million with a long-term contract that has already been agreed. Ali Gold also says that Tottenham are fully expected to make the Dejan Kulusevski move permanent. So do you see this one being likely now?
Yeah, I think so. There were some quotes as well today, apparently, that said he's already talked to the club and it's in their hands, basically, or something like that. I don't know if you saw them. They came out today. I think Henry Wright was showing it on his stream earlier, but yeah, there's something about him saying that he's already spoken to the club and it's up to them or something like that, what they do. Personally, I think for 25 million, it's a no-brainer. I think there were some people talking about if it's 35 million pounds, then you're looking, okay, maybe should we do it or should we not do it? Because
even that's a no-brainer to me.
Yeah, I mean, look, for me personally, I would sign him for 35 million as well. I know some people, I understand why some people wouldn't want him for 35 million pounds because it's a lot of money to outlay for a player who's had a bad season, but for 25 million pound, look, we've seen what Kulu is capable of, right? I don't think there's many players you can get of that level or with the player of that much potential for 25 million pounds who's 22 years old. I think it's an absolute no-brainer, and I think when you put him with the right manager who plays the right football, I think you'll see Kulusevski come alive again, and he'll become Kulusevski again. Look, we've seen how good he can be. He can be an absolute world-class talent, and I still think one day he will be. I just think, look, I think so many fans this season have really shit on him a little bit, like they have with quite a lot of our players, right? And maybe some to an extent rightly so. But with Kulusevski, he's a young player, right? That he's been in a team this season where I think after that injury, after the World Cup, no, he didn't go to the World Cup, but after that injury, he just hasn't looked the same play. He just hasn't. Yeah. He's looked like he hasn't been able to beat his man. You've seen it in glimpses. You've seen it in glimpses where you're like, oh, that's the Kulu of old. Like you've seen where he's gone to the byline or something, beat him on his right foot, and he's crossed it in. He's got an assist because he's got, I think, was it 9 or 8 assists in all competitions all season. So in assist wise, he's not done fairly badly, but in terms of like his overall goals and assist contribution, it's been pretty bad as a whole collective.
2 goals this season, 2 goals, and one of them was on the first game of the season.
Yeah, it's been absolutely terrible. But let's be honest, the whole squad has been terrible this season. Everyone has been terrible. It's been shambolic. We've had 3 different managers this season, and it's insane that what those players have gone through in terms of the difference of managers, difference of tactics, difference of team talks, different formations, all this kind of stuff. And Yeah, I think what I've seen in Kulu is that I've still seen he has the work rate there, and I think what I've seen is not just him, a lot of players is the lack of confidence in his own ability, and I think I've seen that a lot in Kulu, and I think he just needs someone to put that arm around him, like kind of what Conte did last season, and say, look, believe in yourself, sort of thing, because you're a very talented player. And I
Yeah.
think if we get someone in who's going to really focus on him as well, I think the fans will see exactly what how good Kulu is. Do you know what it reminds me of, Ben? It reminds me of when all the fans were shitting on Harry Kane, right? Remember when he kind of downplayed he downed his
In the
tools when he
first,
didn't
in
get his
6 months after the City game of deal, yeah.
yeah, when he did that, right, he downed his tools, and people were like, "Oh, he's finished to us, he's dead to us," and I'm like, "I'm sorry, what is your problem? This is Harry Kane you're talking about. Of course, he's down tools because he doesn't want to be there. He doesn't feel that he's the board have he feels the board have lied to him or whatever it is, right? But not to say that he's a shit player. He's still a world class talent. And what happens as soon as Antonio Conte came in, bang, the light bulb switch in his head, and Harry Kane came back, and that's
Yeah.
what it was. Because he had that motivation again, that he had that belief that there was something, there was something to kind of work towards. He had a manager who had a vision and plan of what he wanted, and Harry Kane believed in him, and I think you just need the same for some of these players in this team, especially you could say the same for Basuma, you could say the same for Kulusevski. I've been having arguments with people on Twitter today about Richarlison. Maybe to an extent, maybe Richarlison, but look, that's another debate we can talk about another day. But yeah, look, I think he just needs the right manager around him, and Kulusevski for 25 million is absolutely no brainer. Absolutely.
Because at the end of the day, if you don't take up the option to sign him for 25 million, right? If you want someone of his quality or better, you're paying double minimum. So
Well,
I think it's an absolutely no brainer.
Put it into perspective, Ben. Is it Villarreal? They want Danjuma for 25 million, right? I mean, who would you rather buy, Danjuma for 25 million or Kulusevski?
Absolutely. That's a great comparison, to be honest.
Yeah.
And
So,
with what you were saying as well, with no confidence to take on his man, I actually don't think that's the case. I think it's more of a case of he can take on his man at the moment, but I feel like his end product, which he was so good at last season, I feel like his passing and his crossing and his shooting has just been so off this season. Really has. I mean, case in point was the first half, right, against Leeds. How many good opportunities on the break did we have when Sonny was in good opportunities and he just kept playing lazy balls and sloppy passes time and time again, when at half time we could have been 3-4-0 up if it wasn't for poor passing from him and even Harry Kane.
Yeah, I agree. And I think we actually discussed this in the stadium on the last day of the season. And I think that's probably you're probably right, actually. To an extent, you can see his confidence is he doesn't beat his man as often as he normally does, where he's got that confidence where with Kulusevski, you can see he's not a fast player, but he's got amazing bursts of acceleration.
He's fast up here.
Yeah, he's fast up here, but he can burn a player when he's one-on-one with him standing against him. He'll just burn him. He'll go past him like he's not even there. And I think he's not doing it as often as he has been doing, where he'll burn past him, cutting on the left and just whip it in or something like that, whether it's a cross, a shot, or a pass, whatever. But you're right. I think his biggest problem has been his final third kind of decision making.
Yeah,
like you said, it looks lazy. It looks like he's not confident in what he's doing. He doesn't look confident in his passing, his crossing, and it's either hit too short or too far.
Yeah,
and it's just not as precise as what we expect from Kulusevski. And I do believe he will have that back once he gets the confidence from the right manager, and hopefully next season we will see the old Kulusevski back.
Yeah, let's hope so. Let's talk about three players now who have been linked with Spurs. First up, James Maddison, who's been linked with us for so long now. Sammy Mockbell saying that Maddison is a target for Newcastle, Arsenal, Manchester City and Tottenham. The Magpies, who will play Champions League football next season, are understood to be the early favourites to land James Maddison. I mean, can you see any hope in hell of us for signing James Maddison?
Definitely not. If Newcastle come in for James Maddison, it's already they can offer him. They can offer Leicester the more money. They can offer him better wages. They can offer Champions League football. Eddie Howe, a team that's in a such a good moment, playing good football. There's a buzz around the place. The Newcastle fans, the buzz around the city. It's just right now. It's the perfect place for someone. Maddison will elevate that midfield to another level, I think. And personally, I think he's a wonderful talent, right? But I know he has a lot of injury issues, but when you actually look at what he's contributed to this season, I think it's like, was it 19 goal and
Yeah,
assist contribution,
something
and
like that. Yeah.
that's considering the amount of injuries he's had. That's ridiculous. That's absolutely ridiculous, considering the amount of time he's actually not played, which shows how effective he can be. And I know that the club have wanted Maddison for a while. It's not, and I know, well, as far as I'm aware, I know the club offered him to Conte, and Conte didn't want him because it didn't suit his system. Right? We can debate that for another day, but I think Maddison has to be play with a manager who fits that kind of 4-2-3-1 type of system, or a player who will sit behind the striker or strikers,
Brendan
basically.
Rodgers.
Yeah, well, package deal, Brendan Rodgers, and they get Brendan Rodgers just to attempt James Maddison. Maddison's now, see you later, mate, I'm going to Newcastle. That'd just be Spursy all over, wouldn't it? But look, I would like Maddison. I just don't know if he's the right person in terms of for the money, and especially with our medical team, right? Our medical team are atrocious. And if he's already bad at Leicester, could you imagine what he'd be like at Spurs?
But Danny, I mean, he's played 30 Premier League games this season. He's only missed 8 of them. I mean, that's nothing to be sniffed at. 19 goal contributions, 30 games. Last season, he played 35 Premier League games and got 20 goal contributions.
Yeah, so then I think in all competitions, I think we had like 27 or something like that last season, Maddison. Look, I would definitely take Maddison. Like, there's no question about it. I would definitely take him. If it was a dream world, I would take him and have him as our central attacking midfielder behind Harry Kane. And I think that's the type of signing that maybe Harry Kane will look at and think, do you know what? Maybe you are trying to build a good team again. He needs that. He needs someone who can relieve the pressure of. We need someone like a Maddison who can relieve the pressure of Harry Kane to be the only core assister in the team, right? The main contributor of assists or goal contributions. You can look at how Arsenal played this season with Odegaard, right, and how influential and instrumental he's been to their way of playing their football. And I think we need someone like that. We've lacked that since Eriksen left, and we can say that about many positions at Tottenham where we've lacked since certain players have left. But Maddison, I would love him, but realistically, Newcastle going for him, I can't see him going to anywhere else, because at Newcastle they'll probably be able to guarantee him more football, Premier League, more wages than anyone can offer him. Yeah, I think it's a done deal if Newcastle go for him.
Yeah, I'm afraid so. I can't.
You love Maddison?
I'd love Maddison. I'd love Maddison. I've said it time and time again. I think he'd be a great player for us in that number 10 position, creativity that we desperately need. But not only just creativity, but he knows where the net is as well. And he's got a really good finish on him. He's got a good free kick. I mean, the guy ticks all the boxes for me. He really does. And in terms of what you're saying about the injury record, I really don't think it's an issue. I mean, he's had 5 seasons at Leicester now. He's never played less than 31 games. 30 games.
Then that's pretty good then. Then in that respect, then yeah, I would definitely take him at Spurs, like 100%. If he's managed to play that many games for the last couple of seasons since he's been at Leicester, or however many seasons he's been there, then 100%. I just don't know. Like, do you know what? It's one of those things where he could be a really big marquee signing for us that the club would probably do if the manager wanted. But I do feel right now is we have such more urgent positions we need to fill, and I think we need to fill the defensive fragilities that we have.
100%.
At the moment, like we've got so many bad issues at the back. I think that's the focus. Like goalkeeper, 2 centre backs at minimum. Who knows? We might even need another left wing back or another right wing back, because for me, I think someone like Porro, I think he can play as a right winger, and I think he could be the right winger rotation with Kulusevski, in my opinion, because I think he's so good attacking wise. And you've got 2 different types of like right wingers in Kulusevski, who's an inverted winger, and then an old school type of winger in Porro, right? But if you do have a better back 3 or back 2, it would allow those fullbacks to push up higher, because you're going to trust the defence more to do their jobs, right?
Got Jed Spence coming back as well, to be fair.
We do, but again, I think he's another one where he's not I've seen some of his performances when he's been on loan in the French league, and defensively he looks all right attacking wise, but defensively he looks terrible.
Did you not
And
see him pocket Mbappe?
oh god, yeah. I mean, he's another type of he's another type of player where I think he needs Premier League experience. He needs to go on loan at a Premier League club for a whole season. I always say this with some of our youngsters. Unless I see them in the Premier League playing Premier League level for a whole season, it's so hard to judge them because, again, you could say the same for Skip. I know Skip's been a massive part, like in terms of like he's played a lot of games this season, but really he needs to go to a club like a bit lower in the league and play week in, week out, right? So that he can really gain that experience. Just like we did for Kyle Walker when he went to Aston Villa. But he was playing week in, week out. It elevated his game. He came back to Spurs, and Pochettino took him to the next level after he kind of progressed with Aston. It was Martin O'Neill, I think it was, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was.
And he did really well with Kyle Walker. So I think we need a manager. Maybe even go back to Nottingham Forest for a season. Go to Nottingham Forest where he performed so well in the Premier League, and really just take it on from there.
And learn off Serge Aurier.
Play in the Premier League. Yeah. Could you imagine? The thing is, I actually think he would actually go. He would play in front of him if he did. So
yeah, probably.
Yeah. So for me, I think James. Sorry, we kind of I deviated off, but
it's all good.
Yeah, James Maddison is definitely a tick for me.
But you did mention the defensive, flaws at Tottenham and Spurs looking to bolster that defence. So the name that we have been linked with is Leeds' Robin Koch. The Football Insider are saying that Tottenham are setting their sights on a cut price deal of around 15 million for defender Robin Koch following Leeds' relegation. And this is one which I think we need to stay well clear of. I actually did a little search of him on Twitter after these news came about, and I've seen Leeds fans celebrating this, and they've gone down.
I mean, Ben, they've conceded. Is it Leeds? I think they've conceded the most goals in the Premier League this season.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
They conceded over 70 goals in a Premier League season, which is absolutely insane. And Tottenham are linked with a defender.
78, by the way.
70, nearly 80 goals is absolutely mental, right? And Tottenham are linked with a defender who has been part of one of the worst defensive showings in a Premier League season.
Ever.
And we're gonna take, ever. And we want a centre back from that team who he's actually been absolutely disgraceful this season. We're talking about wanting Eric Dyer to go, yet we're linked with someone who's probably worse than Eric Dyer. I mean, it's unbelievable. It's unbelievable. And I personally think this is just all paper talk. I think this is just more media things to stir up more crap for us Tottenham fans, put us in more misery and talk about more rubbish players. But yeah, look, I don't think anything's going to happen with him, and I pray to God that nothing does, because if I do, then the word that I took out of what you just read out to me is cut price.
Yeah.
Cut price. That's what I took out of it.
Yeah.
And it's got Daniel Levy written all over it. Who can we take from all the relegated teams for a cut price deal? That's what they're going to be looking at. I'll tell you now, this season they're going to be looking at. We're going to get one or two players from those relegated teams.
There are quite a few players from the relegated teams that I would take, but Robin Koch ain't one of them. I'll tell you that.
Well, I'll tell you one thing, Ben. I'd take some players who is not in the defensive areas. Any player that's not in a defensive area, that's a more attack-minded player, midfielder, I wouldn't mind. Like even as a rotational player, even a Ward-Prowse is a good player, right? I don't think he's an amazing player. I think he's just a better version of Højbjerg in terms of he can score goals and he can score more goals, score free kicks and stuff like that. I don't think he's much better than Højbjerg in that respect as an overall player. But I would not take any defenders from any of the relegated teams, because we need to improve the defense, not make it worse.
But you know who I would potentially take out of for a defender from the relegated teams. I think Southampton got Bella Kotchap and Salisu, who I think both are pretty good players and young players coming through the ranks. I think if they were to come, I wouldn't want to see them starting week in week out. But I think they've got room to grow in the Premier League, and I think they could become good players. But I definitely would not take anyone from Leicester or Leeds in their defences. That's for sure.
Yeah, I agree. I think those two players you mentioned, Salisu and who's the other player? What was
Bella
the other player's
Kotchap.
name? Yeah, Bella Kotchap. Yeah, they're decent players. I mean, Salisu I've seen more of, and I've seen more of maybe potential in him, but again, I just don't think it's what we need right at this moment. I think what we really need to go alongside Romero is just a general, like an absolute leader at the back. And do you know who I would have
We
loved?
need Maldini. That's who we need. That's the only one that's going to improve us.
Yeah. Do you know who I would take, right? And I'm so gutted we never went in for him. I would have taken Tarkowski, man. I think Tarkowski, putting him alongside someone like Romero, he'll grab him by the neck and be like, you fucking don't fucking charge out. You do what I say, sort of thing, yeah? Yeah, he's not gonna mess around with Tarkowski. Like, I'm telling you that for a fact. And you need someone who's a proper unit at that back, a big, strong, kind of quick type of vocal leader who is actually
Jan Vertonghen. That's who we need.
Yeah, we need a Jan. We need someone who's gonna be able to command Romero what to do, because I think it goes into a little bit why we've been, another reason why Romero's probably been off pace and why so many fans have been slating him. I don't think he's a bad player. I just think that he just doesn't look interested at the moment, and I think we need defenders, a defender especially, who's gonna be able to help him and guide him and actually of a better quality. Because when you're Romero, right, this is what's funny, right? You look at Romero, he's been he's been instrumental in their Copa America title, right? And he was very pivotal in their World Cup, right? Their World Cup win. He's got 2 international trophies, the 2 biggest things, the 2 you can win for your international country, and he's won them in a calendar year, right? And he's looking next to him, and he's got Eric Dyer, he's got Ben Davis, he's got Davinson Sanchez, right? He's looking at it and thinking, what am I doing here? Like, honestly, what am I doing here, right? And he's got his World Cup medal in one hand, he's got his Copa America medal in the other hand. And we know the South Americans, they're very passionate about the international teams, right? But what I see from him is that you need someone who's gonna give him that confidence and belief that he doesn't need to work as stupidly or work as hard as he has to work to do what he needs to do. And we know that he's got fundamentals he needs to improve in his game, like going to ground far too often, and that's not what defenders should be doing. It's the fundamentals of defending. But for me, we need that leader at the back. We just need that proper leader at the back. And I think you put him next to Romero, I think he'd be good. And I think you could even I would actually transition Emerson into a right centre back. I think if you play him with Porro as the right wing back, I think it's a good little combination.
Yeah. Completely agree. And the thing you were saying about Christian Romero, I've said this time and time again, to be honest, but it reminds me so much of Jan Vertonghen and his early stages at the club. When we had Tim Sherwood, when we had Villas-Boas, Vertonghen was a shadow of the player he was after when Pochettino came in, and suddenly we put Toby Alderweireld next to him and you see this world-class defender flourish. And I think the exact same thing will happen with Cuti Romero once we put better players around him.
I 100% agree, and there's so many Tottenham fans, Ben, at the moment. We're absolutely slating Romero. They're basically saying, "Oh, he needs to go. He's got the wrong attitude and all this thing, and all this kind of stuff." And I agree to an extent about the attitude problem, right? But you have to look at it from his perspective as well. That yes, he's paid by the club. He should be giving his all, but I think there's a lot of times where he is overcompensating, and there is a lot of times where he's
agreed, 100%.
I think he's definitely overcompensating a lot, but I think there's also an element where he knows what he's doing at times, right? But he's doing it because he's just like, well, no one else is going to try to do something, so I'm going to try something and try and change the game in a certain way. And we know he's a bit over aggressive at times, but like I said, I think you put quality next to him. I think he's going to be you'll see the Romero we saw in the first season under Conte, right?
Yeah.
That's where we got the Champions League football and we finished 4th. He was sublime. Every single Spurs fan was like, we've got the next world-class defender. Even though people like myself wasn't saying that he's a world-class defender yet, but he's got the potential to be a world-class player. And you could see the ability in there. And I think even now you can still see it. He's lacked consistency this year. He's had the injury. He's had the World Cup as well. And do you know what? It's a very important thing as well that people always forget. We've actually had our first World Cup in the middle of a season, which is a first for a lot of clubs. So it's a very different way of managing players, their fitness, and all this kind of stuff. So I think next season it's a clean slate for a lot of these players, and I just hope they bring in the right players and right manager for someone like Romero as well.
All right, let's move on to the last topic of the update today regarding Israeli Manor Solomon. Jack Pickbrook saying that Tottenham are working to sign Manor Solomon on a permanent deal after FIFA ruled that he could go on a free this summer. Solomon will be able to leave Shakhtar Donetsk on a free this summer, with Fulham interested in him permanently. However, Spurs are at the front of the queue if he does leave Craven Cottage. Do you like him?
Yeah, I like him. I like the look of him. I think he's a good little player. I know Mr. Ben Kaufman has been a very big advocate of him, and and so is Brian Daigle. Actually, they've obviously looked.
No bias in there whatsoever.
No bias in there whatsoever, Ben. Absolutely not. But no, when I started watching him, he does look like an interesting talent. He's very direct, right? He's a young player. He's quite quick. I don't know if I think he would be good for. Again, he's the type of player that would be good for someone like an Arne Slot or maybe a Postecoglou, who plays the right type of football. And I think he's a good player because he's versatile. I think he can play as good as he can on the left wing and then he can on the right wing. And yeah, I like the look of him. I do like the look of him. And I think if we get him on a free transfer, it's better than having him in the squad than not. And it's another young player who could maybe help with rebuilding this kind of culture, rebuilding this kind of the players in the squad that we need to do. Yeah, I think he'd be good. I think he'd be a good little player. I'm not saying that he's gonna light the world on fire and he's gonna be unbelievable. But I think when you've lost like Lucas, we're obviously losing Lucas Moura, Dan Juma. We don't know if they're going to sign him. We need more numbers, and we know too well that Spurs are not going to spend ridiculous sums of money this summer. So we have to try and be smart and try and get some players in when we can. And I think if you get an opportunity like that with someone like him, then yeah, definitely, because I think he's shown enough talent in the Premier League to kind of look at him and be like, oh yeah, do you know what? We could take a punt on him and maybe coach him, get a coach to coach him really well to take him up to the next level in his development. Yeah, I don't know. How do you feel about him?
I think he's been a bit hot and cold this season, but I think when he's been hot, I really like the look of him.
Yeah.
He's got ability, a really good ability. I mean, that wonder of a foot, doesn't he? Some of the goals he's scored, a bit like the goals that you see Sonny scoring with that kind of whip into the top corner. But I think those have been a bit too few and far between. There was that one moment in the season, I think he scored 5 goals in a row in 5 games in a row in the Cup and the League. But that's the only goals he did score this season. So I do like him, and I would like to take a punt on him, but only as like a backup and as a good young player coming through, not as like a starting week in, week out kind of thing.
No, I completely agree with that. And I think you hit the nail on the head where he's been hot and cold this season. And yeah, I would not want him as a first team regular on that bench week in, week out. I think he's someone who needs to kind of build his way up into first team football. And maybe you started playing him in the lower games, or I think this season is going to be kind of a free hit for any manager that comes in. I think unless you get someone like Rodgers in or whoever comes in and they just do absolutely terrible for the first 10 games, Levy's going to pull the trigger. And that's my biggest worry, because I don't want to
Potter as well. I think is probably in that camp.
Yeah, I agree completely. I think with any player that we bring in, my biggest concern is I don't want to be seeing us linked with players or until we've got the director of football, if we do get one in, or there's been reports that we might get a head of recruitment or something like that. But I think it will be director of football.
Apparently a director of football rejected us today, the Frankfurt sporting director.
Yeah, I heard.
Another one bites the dust.
Another one bites the dust, Ben, and this is it. And I think we need to sort out the fundamentals of a football club for a football team, which is if you're gonna go for a director of football, we get one in. If not, you get the head of recruitment in, someone to help Scott Munn, because he's not a proper football person. If you look at his experience, and then you get the manager in, and then once you've got the manager in, then you can say, look, we're working on this deal for this player. Do you like the look of him? Do you think you could work with him? Right? And if the manager says, yes, I like the look of him, I want to work with him, or he wants him, then yeah, by all means. But if the manager says no, I don't want to play anywhere near the club. We have to stop being this club, right, that buys players because they're young, they've got potential. We can maybe make some money out of them in the future. There's an opportunity. We need to buy players that the manager actually wants, or the manager says, I want that player, right? And this is what is mind-blowing, that there's managers out there that don't actually, who are not, you would say, who are not like, who have massive egos, like a Conte or a Mourinho, who want the best of the best. And you only bring those managers in really when you're right near the top, and you just need that extra little push to kind of go and win a title or go and win a trophy, right? Not to rebuild or to build, should we say, because we need to build from the whole ground up. And I think, I don't want to see us buy club signings like Jed Spence and people like that. And in my opinion, Richarlison's a club signing, massive club signing. Again, I don't want to see us do that. We have to get a manager that, and the club needs to sign the players the manager wants. Otherwise, we know what's going to happen, don't we? And again, Solomon, I think if Potter or whoever it is that comes in likes him, then let's go for him, because then he believes that he can work with him.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like we need to get we need to sort that out ASAP. Otherwise, targets are just going to go left, right, and centre, and we'll probably be forced to start bringing in players without having a manager and a sporting director. But look, go on.
This is before the last point. This is my biggest worry, Ben, is that what I'm seeing at the moment is you're seeing teams already starting movement for players, managers. You're seeing on Liverpool on the verge of McAllister kind of thing. You've seen other teams. Arsenal are really trying to get Declan Rice as soon as possible before a bigger club like a Bayern. I've heard Bayern really want him, or Man United or Chelsea want him. Chelsea are trying to buy Ugarte. Pochettino's just started, but they already knew about Ugarte. And imagine if Chelsea go and buy Ugarte. It's just insane. And we're sitting here and we don't even know what's going on. We've got another director of football who's just rejected us. We have to sort this shit out right now before.
Right now.
Yeah. We have to.
I mean, in a few days, isn't it? The 71 days will hit in a few days. So, I mean, it's very, very frustrating here being a Tottenham fan. But
before we go, Ben, I want to ask you, right? What's the amount of days you think it's going to be before we get a manager? Is it going to hit the 100-day mark?
It very well
It's going to be another month before we get another manager?
It very well could be, man. I mean, at the moment, it seems like there's no light at the end of the tunnel. But if they are serious about Ange Postecoglou, you'll hear a lot more stuff after the cup final for Celtic once that treble's been won for them. So maybe that's going to build up, when that happens. But look, your guess is as good as mine, and my guess is going to be around 80 days or something like that. I think it'll be 10 more days than what it was last time. But Danny, thank you so much for coming on today, my friend. That's all we have time for. That was 2 updates for you today. One on the manager situation, one on the player situation. But we'll speak to you all very soon. Like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs. Leave you out.